because that's where the magic occurs, you know? I mean, you can do a script and ask questions, you know, that are scripted, but even within that, there's magic when you just show up, because we've learned to do so much control to try to avoid the problem or the difficulty we've decided will occur. And there's a magic in us showing up.
And I never thought, that I could live like this. But always, when I think about my life before, this sense was with me. So hi guys, this is going to be interesting because I guess this is my first podcast in English.
Really?
Yes, and I have someone who's really special to me, and I'm so honored that you joined me, Dain. Thank you.
Thank you. I am very happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much. So you came to Budapest because you have a class?
Yes.
Being you, changing the world. Before we came here, I was like, hey, is it okay if I don't have a title? We just sit down and chat?
Yeah. And my point of view is absolutely. Because that's where the magic occurs, you know? I mean, you can do a script and ask questions, you know, that are scripted, but even within that, there's magic when you just show up for whatever's there.
So true. I don't know if I told you this story. When I got divorced and I moved back from San Francisco, and someone asked me...
You don't look old enough to have ever been married. Did you get married at like 9 years old or something?
Yeah. 11-ish?
11, yeah.
Around 11. It was actually 6 years ago. Can't believe it.
Wow.
It was 6 years ago. And when I moved back, there was this organization and they asked me to do a speech. And so one of the ladies, she was like, you really need to be a good speaker, so we offer you a free training. So basically, I was going every week. We had this rounded carpet, just like on TED Talks. So I was standing there, writing like basically a script or something like a presentation. And I had to go through the whole thing. So the deal was I have to do an hour presentation. And it was just so hard. I was ignoring it, avoiding it. And last night, I put together something and I was wishing I would remember any of that. And I showed up. One of my best friends, she came with me. She was in the audience. And I started playing my presentation. And I was like, yeah, but I just can't remember what I was thinking of yesterday when I was writing on all of these things. And I struggled so much. It was 20 minutes only. And I was done. And I sit down in the audience. Everyone were like, that was it? Not an hour? Like, the schedule looks like she's supposed to talk for an hour. I sit down. My friend is there. And she's like, oh, man, I wish I'm not your friend. Now everyone knows that we are together. And I was like, okay, I should not do this. I really should give this up. But then a little later, I can remember how long someone asked me if I could do another speech. And I was like, hey, guys, I'm not a speaker at all. I can show up and I do my best. I talk about something, what shows up, and let's see. And they were like, that's fine. I think it was like a couple months later. I showed up and they gave me a title. I can't remember what that was, but people thought it's somehow building like a self-brand. So 90 people signed up. And when I came into the room, no one knew me. And people would come and ask, like, where can I get some water?
Right.
And I'm like,
where's
yeah,
the coffee?
here. And when everyone's sitting in the room, they realized, oh, they were asking for water from me, and I am the one who's going to speak. All these people in suits and just really curious. And I already did access bars. I was a facilitator, access bars facilitator, and I put a little presentation together, but just a couple words just to remember myself that I want to talk about a bunch of stuff. It was like a different perspective for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to talk. And before that presentation, I was asking always the universe, I'm like, who I want to become when I work. Like that was my favorite
Hmm.
question to ask. Because when I moved back, I didn't know what I'm gonna do in the future. I had no job, I had no vision for my future. So I'm standing there holding this um like small, I don't know how you call it in English, that you can flip your
Yeah.
presentation with. And I'm holding it. And then in one moment, I had this energy coming through my body. And I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I was talking about magic. And I was like, this guy's gonna leave the room. And no one left the room. And the end of the presentation, people were standing in line, asking me questions. What is this? What is this that you guys are doing? And I was like, it's access bars. Like, come and try. Look if you like it. And it's just so interesting how, you know, the first experience was, and then I didn't go, okay, I'm not gonna do this anymore because it got another energy when I was
Yeah.
asked the next time. And I'm so glad I haven't, because that basically started my whole
Yeah.
thing, or I wouldn't
Well,
say career for sure, but like the thing I'm
more
doing
like a
now.
movement, really, which is
Maybe.
awesome. But that's the thing about that's exactly that, being you,
Mm.
showing up, being like, hi, because we've learned to do so much control to try to avoid the problem or the difficulty we've decided will occur. And there's a magic in us showing up because we've learned to do so much control to try to avoid the problem or the difficulty we've decided will occur. And there's a magic in us showing up. There's rather than be themselves.
Mm.
So I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. I yeah, I even now every single class I do is really different.
Yeah.
Like I'd never say the same thing. Maybe sometimes some stuff, but there is always something different that shows up. So you're doing the Being You class. I always ask you this question. I still can't remember. What was first, the class or your book?
The book.
Oh, the
Yeah,
book.
the book
Okay.
came out in 2011 in English. And as a way of promoting the book, inviting, we had a new thing. And, I love bright, shiny new things, as we do. And so the book came out in 2011, and we created a 3-day class to go along with the book. Oh my God. This class. Oh, I had been facilitating classes for 11 years at that point. And this class did something that was so different. It was like all these people came in. It was a class with no prerequisites, still is. You don't have to have taken anything about anything. You just come in fresh off the street and a freshie, like they say in Australia. And people came in and they were like, I have no idea what we're doing here, but okay. And 3 days later, there was this sense of, this is a difficulty with access. There's not really words to describe a sense of miraculousness in the room where people, and as a facilitator, and you know this really well, you see them at the start of the class and you see them as they go through. And by the end of the class, it's like their eyes are bright. They're engaged. They have a smile on their face. Whereas before, a lot of them are like, and you can tell something is different in their world. Well, with this particular class, the 3 days of class was amazing. But when I saw people 6 months later, the change had increased. And I was like, wow. And for me, that's why I do what I do. It's like why you do what you do. It's for this gift of seeing people get to be them, whatever that is, on their terms, but also navigate their world a lot more successfully because they're congruent with what's true for them. It's a really challenging thing to live a lot of your life from what's not true for you, from what everybody expects of you and what you're trying to prove to people and prove to yourself about you. And it's a lot of work. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people are really tired,
Mm.
really worn down, and also really unhappy. And when you realize it, it's okay. It's like you showing up at that second presentation, being like, hi, I'm here. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. And I hope it's good. And now that I see that you're all in suits, you're probably going to leave. But they didn't, because the genuineness, the authenticity is something people crave, especially in today's world where there's so much about the image and the likes and the,
Mm,
but who's looking at how much do I like myself?
mm.
You know, and that's really where the magic of being alive is actually liking you. And it's possible. And it's way easier than any of us thought.
Mhm. Now,
Now, yeah.
it was different when you started.
Oh my goodness, so different.
Mm.
So different. And also, when the book came out, what, 13 years ago, no, 14 years ago.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. That's a long time.
Have you
When the
changed anything in the book ever since, or
uh
it's the same?
no,
Wow.
no, it's, you know, and it's been translated into 20 languages or something. And
Wow.
yeah, all by invitation of people like, hey, we want this book in our country. I'm like, let's do that. Great idea.
Mm.
But nobody was talking about being you. That was not something that you heard. It wasn't a valuable product. And now even Coca-Cola is talking about it. You
Yeah.
know, if Coke is stealing it to market their stuff, you know there's something, you know, there's something that the world is actually reaching for, which is really cool.
I know actually about how much it changed. Meaning, when I went to my first bars class 9 years ago,
Mm,
and I remember the room was packed. It was with András Palachko, and I sometimes just go back to listen to the recordings because it gives me something. Like every
yeah.
class, every time you listen, it's a whole new class. And I was always wondering, like, András, did you know that we were so stupid? And he's like, no, you guys not. But it was definitely a lot more work in
Yeah.
class than nowadays.
That is a very good way to put it. It was a lot more work to get people to choice and it was like there was so much more structure of judgment that people were holding on to.
Mm.
And now, I mean, this class, you know, we ended day 2 of the 3-day class today. And I mean, we get further in a day than we used to get in 3 days. We get further in a morning than we used to get in 3 days. And by that, what I mean is uh, people have whatever structures in their lives, you know, and when I'm talking about structure, I'm talking about sort of the things that aren't really moving, but they're trying to make them work and they're not working. And there's this sense of a lightness that emerges so quickly. And, you know, one of the tools of access is what's true for you makes you lighter. A lie makes you heavier. So as you have that sense of more lightness and you notice people laughing more and engaging more and smiling more and engaging with other people more, not from a place of judgment anymore about, oh, people probably won't like me or I'm not going to say the right thing. They're just like, hi. And once again, it's just like you at that presentation, the second presentation, where you're like, hi. And to see people get to be that, not just in class, but to know that that is going to transfer into their lives. I mean, there's no greater gift from my point of view than waking up happy and liking yourself. You know, it's not rocket science. We think it is. We think it's the most challenging thing in the world. And I used to think that too. And no, it's more accessible now than it's ever been.
What made you write this book?
Great question. Well, I'd been facilitating a class called The Energetic Synthesis
Mm.
of Being.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
My favorite one of my favorite classes are the ESP and the Being You. I won't miss one.
Thank you.
I won't miss one. Those are all of them, by the way, but those two classes are something beyond something.
Yeah, well put. And that's, you know, and people are like, tell me what I'm going to get. I'm like, I think I'm going to use that from now on. It's something beyond something. Because it is, and you can't describe it. You can't put it into
Mm.
words. And that's why I actually wrote the book, because I was facilitating these classes, and once again, there's such a magic that occurs. And I was like, I wanted more people to be able to access that, but also there were certain themes that would emerge after facilitating classes for a few years in a row, and perceiving there was a unique result that got created that I don't have words for. It was something beyond something. And and it was so beautiful. And I think the word beautiful is one of the descriptors for it, where that's what people would have a sense of about themselves. And not from the beautiful, like, oh my God, I look so good today in my, whatever, but wow, I'm actually I'm beautiful as a being, and I mean, if we, on a total side note, if we extrapolate, if we had a world of people functioning from there, how different would our world look?
Oh man.
I mean, really. So if you have one person in your family functioning from there,
Mm.
changes all the family dynamics and then goes out from there, right?
Exactly.
So we, I say we because I mean, I'm facilitating, but there's so many of us behind the scenes that create the classes, and seeing certain themes emerge and certain ways I could put things that would, like, if we didn't know each other and I said these things to you, you'd be like, oh, it makes total sense. And you'd be able to have a tool to access that from that point forward. And so I actually took transcripts of the energetic ESB, energetic synthesis of being classes. And I asked this lady to write a book. And what she returned to me was the most boring piece of crap I've ever read in my life. And I was like, huh, okay. So about 6 months later, I took some different transcripts thinking, oh, maybe it was just the theme of those classes or something. Cause what I sensed was magic. Like,
Mm.
and I'm crazy enough to believe in magic. And the funny part is, because I believe in it, it shows up, you know? And so I asked another lady to write a book. And this lady was like, oh, I'm energy worker. I'm an author. I'm like, oh, cool. Let's try this. It was just as bad as the previous one. And I was like, okay, maybe this is not meant to be a book. And then I met this beautiful creature who was so intelligent, so bright, had so much light behind her eyes and so much enthusiasm. Her name was Katerina
Mm.
Valentin. And I was going to do I was going to this thing that used to exist called Angsbaka, which I call Swedish Euro Hippie Fest. It was a spiritual thing, and I was going there to do presentations, and I was going there to do, obviously, my Italian nature is working with this thing here. I was going to do presentations and sessions, and they said, hey, bring a personal assistant. And I went, okay. And I knew Katarina, and she was from Sweden. And I said, hey, do you want to be my assistant? She's like, sure, why not? Let's try this. And she had my back to such a degree. She had everything ready before I even thought about asking for it. And I was like, wow, I was so cared for and nurtured. But before we left, she had talked about writing a few chapters of a book that she had worked on. And it was called Nova the Spy. And the nonlinear way that she put it, it conveyed so much in not this is this, this is this. And I went, hey, do you want to write the ESB book? And she went, English is not my first language. I'm like, I know, but you're really good with energy. I said, we can edit the English. And she went, okay. So she sent me the first, I don't know, 25 pages, which were just, and you'll see in the book, it's like a tool and a little snippet, which in 1.5 pages, you read it and your energy shifts and you go, oh, and then you go to the next thing, part of the book, and you read that and things change. And then it was so nonlinear, but so beautiful. And as we went through, I actually asked her, I'm like, okay, so this is obviously, it's the energetic synthesis of being. What are we going to call this? And the next, the next addition that she sent me, she's like, how about if we call it being you changing the world? And I went, Girl, you were nailing the energy on this one. And that's what it was. And I know that was a really long story, but it's interesting how it's kind of like with you with the presentation. It's like when you follow the energy and you just follow the threads of lightness wherever they lead. And I followed the thread of having somebody write the book once, wasn't light, no. Followed the thread again, wasn't light. And I just figured, okay, this book is probably never getting written. And then somewhere out of the universe comes this person who has the capacity to perceive the magic I want to convey. And we together worked on the book, and here it is 13 years later.
It's actually in Hungarian, and so many people has it. Like today, people will
Right.
come to me
So
like, Nicolette,
great.
I want to have my book signed. I'm like, oh, well, let me ask Dain. And then the kid keep coming back to me. And I was texting you. And as I was looking at that stage, you had a huge line with the big
Yeah.
books. Some people brought you 3 of them
So
because they
great.
would, yeah.
It's so wonderful. And it's like to know this is in people's hands, to know that it's like, because it's a way of sharing an energetic journey that allows people to, once again, have access to them, but like themselves and know they're not wrong and have a sense that there's magic in the world. Because when you don't give up believing in magic, you see magic.
When you don't give up believing in magic, you see magic.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so many people of a certain age, usually whatever age,
12.
12, it's like
I was-
they've been so conditioned that magic doesn't exist and you're crazy if you think it does, that they stop allowing the miracles into their lives that they're capable of. And even as I say that, a lot of people, I mean, of course, if people are listening to you, they get it, right? And if they're watching,
of course, you guys,
they're you guys, hello, and they get it. But somebody new, even if I talk about it, they're like, because, and it's such a sadness to me because that's our natural state. Our natural state is miraculous and happy.
Mm.
And then we grow up here with everything everybody's doing. And it seems like the exclusion of that doesn't have to be, though. It takes courage to choose to be that different. But when you see people like you, for example, who have walked the path and you see that it's possible, that's the inspiration we require. And then tools to make it happen.
Can I share? Sure.
Please, always.
I try to be short.
Hey, it's your podcast. Share whatever you want.
Thank you. So when I had my accident, it's been 10 years. I can't believe it.
Wow.
It seems like it was yesterday, but it's been 10 years. And I was not able to work, but I used to be a hairdresser, so I didn't really know anything else beyond that. So basically, I was at home. I was single. I was living by myself, and I had to take care of myself, but I couldn't walk for 9 months. So I was just in bed for just hanging out, basically. And I was not able to make any money. But when the accident happened, my mom got my little purse and stuff. And she was crying. She came to me. She's like, hey, do you have 5,000 forints in your purse? Like, that's the money that you have. This is like 5,000 for you. Seems like, oh, that's not bad. But man, not even $20.
Right.
And so she's like, that's what you got. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I got. She's like, what are you going to do? We can't help you. We don't have money. I'm like, don't worry about that. It's going to be fine. And she's like, I'm actually worried. Like, how are you going to pay for your rent and stuff? I'm like, I don't really know. So my mom came to me one day. I was at the hospital for so long. So she came to me one day. She's like, hey, I talked to your dad. We figured we don't have time for you all the time. So what we would do, you would stay 1 week with me and then 1 week with your dad. And now I know it was heavy, but
right.
I was just like, no. She's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not
feel
doing
right.
it.
Yeah.
She's like, but what else are you going to do? Like, we can't even pay for your rent. You have no money, not even, I don't know, a little.
Can't even buy you a hamburger at this point.
No.
Right.
And so a friend of mine came to my room and he's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I just have one feeling. If I would move back to my mom's house, I would be dead in 6 months. If I
Wow.
didn't kill me in the accident, I'm gonna create something. I can't do that. If I move, I stay. I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. Don't worry, guys. It's on me. So I stayed, and the weirdest things started to happen to me. I never believed in magic. I thought it's always for others. I wouldn't say I was never jealous, maybe a little envious, but more like I had the point of view that, of course, others get what they want, but it's not
Right.
for me. I just can't get it. It seemed too big for me.
Mhm.
So I stayed home and miracles started to happen. Like, I will share some really funny stories. So the hospital was right next to a huge, I know it in Italian, but I don't know in English.
Say it in
Cimitero, where
cemetery, dead
yeah,
people.
yes, dead
People
people.
are dying to get in that place.
I know. It was right next to the hospital, and I had to go twice a week to therapy.
Oh my God, that's convenient to have the cemetery right next
Thank
to the
you.
hospital.
I know. And it both are huge. So it's like the biggest cemetery and the biggest hospital.
My goodness,
I
that's
know.
funny.
And so I had a car back then, but I couldn't drive my car, obviously. And one morning, we had Uber in Hungary. But then after my accident, they canceled Uber. So for like a week or two, I could use Uber to go to the hospital, but not anymore. And I was like, okay, I will find a way. And my neighbor came up to me, wanted to talk to me about something. And she was like, she dropped a car key on my table. I'm like, what is that? She's like, oh, it's a car key for you. You can use my car. I don't need it. I'm like, yeah, I have a car. I just can't drive, right?
Right.
She's like, yeah, but you broke your left leg. You have the right. And this is automata, not like manual. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, you can use as long as you want. I don't need the car. So this is how it started.
Wow.
I had the car next day. I'm going to the hospital. But back then you couldn't park from an app. So you
Right.
had to go coins and then put it
Mhm.
in the machine. And I was trying to run back every 3 hours because my
wow.
therapy would take so long, but I couldn't walk. So I was on my scratches. Scratches? That's how you call them? The thing that you use for walk?
Crutches.
Yeah.
Oh no. What? Crutches.
Yeah. And one of the guys who was on the therapy with me, he came and he's like, where are you going every 3 hours? I'm like, I have to go down. I have to put coins in the parking machine. He's like, well, I'm coming to therapy for 5 years now. And I'm really good friend with the guys at the cemetery. If you want me to, I can talk to them and I get the spot for you. Because they were like a
awesome.
big gate.
Right.
And so he walks me down. He's like, come with me. I talk to the guy. They get your number. And then you can park at the cemetery. So, and you know, it sounds funny, but it kind of saved my life a little bit. And it
Mhm.
made my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was driving a really old car because she had the oldest car. I was driving this old car. I was parking at the cemetery, staying in a shitty Hungarian hospital 5 hours every day or sometimes 6 because
Wow.
everyone was working on my leg. But I was the happiest person. And I started to become happier and happier every day. And one day I'm at the grocery store with that car, buying groceries, and I couldn't walk with my bags because I just couldn't walk. And people would take that, have me bring out to the car. And one day we're putting these big bags in my car, and I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, I never had this much money to buy this much food before. And I realized
Wow.
I have more money than when I was working. And I was like, where the money came from?
Right.
And I realized that my insurance company, which everyone says they're going to pay you the end of the thing and
Right.
they're not going to give you any money, they will keep sending me money like every month. And I realized after 6 months, I had the best life. I could attend classes. This is when I attended my first bars class. My first foundation class, I was able to pay for that. And so I was home basically for 9 months. Beyond, I had to go to the hospital. And my life became this beautiful something. I
Mm.
had experiences I never before. One time I had to go for a walk every day. My doctor asked me to go for a walk. And he asked me to use a Rantastic app. So like the app that you use
Oh,
for
yeah.
run.
Yeah.
And he asked me every day when I was walking, I had to send him a screenshot that I did my walk. And one day I left my house. I walked to the first intersection. I'm standing there. I see one lady. She looked weird with a dog. And I was like, oh, this lady is so weird. Next thought, why am I in front of my house? And I was like, how did I get here? I missed my walk. What did you? What happened to me? I was so confused. I started to walk. I'm like, I need to do my walk. I feel like I didn't even walk today.
Right.
And I'm like walking, and then I'm so confused. I'm like, I need to go home. I don't know. It's just weird. I go home. I open my app, and from that point, I saw the lady. And between my house, it was just like one line. And then I was walking down the street and then come back. This is what I saw. And I texted András. I'm like, András, I think things are getting really interesting around me. I think I'm crazy. Can you please help? And he's like, oh, I'm going to send this to Dain and Gary. I think you just like bring yourself to one point to another. And we never saw that someone has a proof. Like, okay. And then so many things happened back then. And my doctor told me one day, hey, I think it's time for you to go back to work. And I started to become anxious. I'm like, I just don't want to go back. And I'm like, I like to work. It's not about that. I just don't want to go back. Now I know why I didn't want to go back. So I basically started to work again. And in like 3 weeks, I realized I lost a lot of magic that I had when I was just home. And when I started to listen to people about, oh, how expensive it is and how shitty the government is and how shitty everything is and Hungary sucks and blah, blah, blah. And at some point I realized I lost 50% of the magic I had by being home.
Yeah.
And then I started to attend more classes and the magic came back. So it didn't go anywhere. It was always around me. I just put up so much walls and barriers. And
exactly that. It's when others around us, because there's so much of an impetus to complain about everything, and people love their complaints. It's like it makes them feel powerful or something. I don't know, but it kills our magic. And if you buy it, now you're on the same wavelength as that. And so it's even, if people are hearing you, I hope people are hearing you and going, oh my God, yeah, that's awesome. Because if you at least open up to that, then there's more possibility for you to have that and be that. It's just when you stop cutting off the willingness to receive it, or when you open up to the willingness to receive it, and it's a lot of people are like, well, I need a miracle to change my money and all this. And it's like, that's not the space from which it's going to occur. It's something exactly like you're talking about. It's like just not getting in the way of it and allowing it to happen. But once again, a lot of people are out there going, how do I have miracles? Which is like, how do I have a magic wand to solve my problems? It's a different way of being, which you embody so beautifully. And I know you hate when I acknowledge you, but I want to acknowledge that because I want everybody watching to recognize that that's part of why they're attracted to what you're offering. And part of the reason why they like listening to you and watching you. I mean, other than the fact that you're really good to look at. In addition.
Thank you.
In addition to that, and a lot of people would think, oh, I like to watch Nicolette because she's so easy on the eyes. Well, yeah, in actuality, your being is an invitation for people to remember what they already are and what they can be again.
Do you remember you were my guest on my membership, and we haven't talked for a couple weeks. I don't know, Christmas and stuff, and other stuff I can remember. And we called each other, and I was like, Dane, can I tell you something? Don't tell this to anyone. But I think I'm getting to the point where I realized I'm not living it, but I realize I don't think I have any problem at all. And you're like, ha, you're so funny. Like, I know. And so I have that now. I still have problems in the outside. I'm creating them because so I can be normal, very normal. But I kind of getting there with my being like I don't actually have problems. I'm inventing them
Yeah.
big time.
Well, and that's the interesting part is we learn to invent them so we can talk to people like your former workmates. So we can have something to talk to them about, so we can feel connected based on our suffering, our drama, our problems, as though that makes us stronger together. But the interesting part is what I found is there's an even greater connection that occurs when we connect on the level of our miraculousness and our greatness. And here's the interesting part also is talking about not having problems. I mean, if you just said that, most people would be like, you are crazy. That's not possible.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, your point of view creates your reality. When your point of view is you can't live without problems, guess what happens?
Yeah.
You live with problems because your point of view is you can't live without problems. And that seems a little crazy making for people and also the person that's willing to explore what we're talking about can go on a different journey. The person that hears it and goes, oh, they're already on their journey. They've already made their conclusion. This is about exploring something different. What if miracles are possible? And not just like once a year, once a decade, What if miracles are possible, and what if not having problems as your primary source for creating your life and your choices is possible? All you got to do, like, what if? What if it is? And because there's so many people out there selling so much bullshit. There's so much bullshit out there, especially, well, in so many ways, but in the personal development space, there's so much. There's so much that promises so much and delivers so little. And, somebody watching or listening could think we're in the same boat. It's like we're trying to sell something. And I'm like, nope, no, I do genuinely desire for people to have a sense that possibilities exist, and if you're out there watching, just what if it's actually possible, and neither you or I mean, we talk about access and we talk about these tools, but neither you or I cares if somebody does access.
No.
What we would love is for them to know that possibilities and miracles exist. If that's with access, great. Whatever the heck it is, whatever lights you up, because we all live on this planet together. And having 8 billion primarily unhappy people, it sucks, Like, if this is all there is, why are we here? We're capable of greater. And we're capable of having it in our lives. And if we could also recognize that us actually thriving, us having a sense of enthusiasm for being alive is a gift. It's not bad for other people. It's good for other people and good for us. You inspire people. And you're an example of it. And I keep referring to that because the people that listen to you and watch you have heard a lot of your journey. You're very open about your journey, and you want people to know, hey, this was a problem, I changed it. Or it's like you're an example of it. And here's one other thing I want to say, which is one of the things that I found is if you admire something in someone, it's in you also. And I know I've talked to many people who engage and interact with you, who take your classes, who are part of your memberships, and they admire you so much, and it's so beautiful. And in the world, we have this idea that if I admire someone, it's because they're something I'm not. But in actuality, if you admire something, it's because you are that also. You have some element of that too. And I just want to say to the people watching, like,
Mhm.
whatever you admire in Nicolette,
Mhm.
it's you have that too. You just haven't necessarily explored it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really.
Thank
I know we
you.
kind of want to reach over and give a hug, you know?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
really,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't always talk about this stuff, like especially the story I share with you sometimes in classes, or I would share, but now I'm sharing with you. I kind of get the sense of that time of my life. And I kind of shared this with you before, that my life from the outside didn't really change. Like I didn't have that much money, or like I didn't change. I didn't lose weight or anything. But like the experience with myself,
Yeah.
I woke up, I finally could, everything was a possibility for me. Like, you can live like this? It was so true for me. I was like, I don't know, what is this? And I don't, like, you guys have the clearing statement. And when people hear it for the first time, they're like, oh, what is it? And,
Mm.
and it was the same for me. I'm like, well, okay. You guys, you do whatever you want with it. I just take the, who does this belong to? It's okay. But then one day I just started to just running inside my head about anything that came up for me.
Mm.
And I realized that my problems, or the thoughts and the energies, like I usually had only bad days, and I was laying on the floor watching the ceiling thinking, what the fuck?
Mhm.
Like, can I die? Guys, I hope I'm not gonna wake up tomorrow morning. Okay, I go buy a bottle of wine, I drink the whole thing, and I felt even worse. The next morning, I'm like, oh my god, what did I do next day? And then I kept in a loop,
Yeah.
basically for years. And when I started to use them, I was like, can I lose? Like my life is so shitty. My leg is so fucked up. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with my life. What if I just give it a shot?
Mhm.
And because of that, every single other tool that came up made no sense to me, and I don't think about it. I just use them, and it works for me. And that made my journey so much easier. Sometimes when people come to my class, they don't want to understand it. Want
Oh, yeah.
things make sense for them. And I'm like, just no, let it go. And I shared my story with them. I'm like, okay, I can, whatever, I can try. What
Yeah.
can I lose? And it was just really interesting for me. Just let it. I think this is what made my journey so much easier than other people who I studied like bar classes and foundation with. And they came to me years after, like, what did you do? You changed everything. I'm like, I don't know. I don't really think about it. I just go
Yeah.
have fun. Whatever light I go. If not, I try not to. Sometimes I'm stupid. I'm running to the wall with my head, no
Yeah, don't
helmets
we
on.
all? Yeah.
But then I'm like, that wasn't a good idea. Okay, what else? And I'm like a puppy sometimes.
Me
Can
too.
try everything. I'm like, oh, yeah, can I try it? And I never thought, that I could live like this. But always, when I think about my life before, this sense was with me,
Yeah.
covered by,
Yeah.
would say, this reality, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why I'm sharing this, because I'm sure everyone listening, you guys had the sense too. It's like, I know my life is not that bad, but my experience is. And there is this light somewhere underneath that we are searching for that.
Yep.
And when you find
Exactly
it,
that.
one lady sent me a text this morning. She's like, hey, I am this girl from Finland. She's Hungarian. She's living there. She sent me a text. Do you remember in 2019 you had I don't know, 90-day program called Happiness Academy or something? And I was following you for a while. Do you remember me? I'm like, of course I remember you. And she's like, Can I just say one thing? I'm not following you anymore because I got on a different journey, but the word needs you. Thank you for doing what you are doing. I was like, oh.
That's so cool.
And because I always tell people, it's not about access, it's about consciousness. It's not
Yep.
about the tool. It's not the tool that works, it's you.
Yep.
And it just gives everything you are back to you. You're finally able to be you again, as we started the conversation
Yep.
with. And when people say, hey, I'm going to try this and that, I'm like, good for you. Go try whatever works for you.
Yeah, exactly.
In the meantime, what matters? You happy, you free, and you're having the best time? Who cares?
Totally.
Do whatever works for you.
And yep, that.
Right?
And yeah.
So it's really, really amazing. I'm just wanted to point it out because you were saying we're not selling something or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, you have so many free stuff out there. You don't even have to come to class, right? To change your life. Like I have so many, I don't know, hundreds of videos and recordings and stuff. People come to me and ask like, why would you put so much stuff out there? Like people should come to your membership. I'm like, nah, I don't.
Yep.
I know. I know. It just works for me. I don't care. People don't have to come to my membership. I just want them to have the info.
Totally.
Because, yeah, this is how I started listening to you. I never shared this story, but I will. I shared with Dain yesterday for the 100th time, so like 100 times, I guess. I met András. I went to his class, and he was mentioning you. I looked you up, and I find this series, Tour of Consciousness. And I didn't know what you were talking about. It was so amazing. Like, I want to understand. So I had this huge laptop, usually overheating, old as fuck. And I was in bed, my leg is like this, and holding this huge computer on my lap. And I'm like, sometimes it's just turned off because it's overheated. And I was listening today, and I'm like, I can understand. And I had my Google Translator open, and I was reading the subtitles in English. And I tried to translate things so I could understand. And in like 6 months, I could understand everything. So when people is like, your English is really similar to Dain's, I'm like, well, basically he's my father, or I don't know, because I was listening to him all the time. So funny, because I'm using the same words that you do, because I learned English through you.
Right.
I was like, I need to learn English.
That's amazing.
I need to learn English. I want to understand what you are saying. And
that is so wonderful.
If you had no stuff out there, I wouldn't be here, maybe. You never know.
I'm really glad. Like, so glad. And also, I mean, it's just amazing. All of it. But that's the miracles we're capable of, you know? Like, you learned English, but part of it is the energetic congruency, where when somebody is speaking and they're matching the energy, it's easier to let it in because all language is energetic. And I love the visual of you sitting there with this old ass laptop, Google Translate, reading the subtitles, and learning English in 6 months. I mean, that's.
I remember when you came to Budapest for the first time, you had a one-day being you class, being you with money.
With money, I remember that one.
Oh, me too. Very well. Very well. You were picking on me. But I remember I ran out to the bathroom. And of course, you set up people to run bars on each other, but we had no room in the back of the room. So we had only chairs. And so people were like behind each other running bars. And I'm coming back and you're like from stage, where did you go? I'm like, to the bathroom. Of course, to the bathroom. Missing the part that she needs the most. Come here. And I'm like, oh my God, I did something wrong. But then it has some other energy too. I'm like, I like that he's speaking on me because it's fucking true that I'm always leaving the room when there is something which would change my whole entire reality or life.
Yeah.
And that class was, wow. And I was so proud of myself because I didn't speak in English. And people call me, hey, do you need translation? I'm like, no, thank you. And I
So
showed up in
good.
class, no translation. And I was engaged the whole class, and it changed my life. I listened to that class so many times. And
That is so cool.
so, can I ask you some other questions? You have some space?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So, how did this journey change for you through the years? Because you're like, I don't want to ask you about how you studied Access because you shared so many places.
Yeah.
If it would be a Hungarian podcast, I might ask, but if people listening, you guys can go to
Yeah.
Dane's YouTube or somewhere.
Exactly.
It's
I
out there.
wanted to die. I found miracles. Now I'm here. There you go.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Wanted to die. I found access. Got exposed to miracles. Now I'm here. 25 years later.
But like, so I wanted to go back where, so did you had the same experience? Like deep down, you knew magic exists?
I think I always did. And I experienced a lot of abuse and a lot of mean people and a lot of people hating me growing up and some wonderful magical moments too. And the first time I'd ever given up hope was when I was 30 years old. First time. And once I did, I was ready to leave. I was done. I'm like, because I always had hope for a brighter future. No matter what I was doing, no matter how down things got, no matter how poor I was, no matter how depressed I was, didn't matter. I was always like, something will be better showing up. And when I finally got to that place where I had so much of what was supposed to make my life work and happy, and none of it was, I was ready to leave. I was done. And then I found access.
So you've been 30 and you decided killing yourself if
Yeah,
things are not
I was
changing.
out of here.
Did you know that the same thing happened to me? I was 30.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like
Wow.
drinking a lot
Yeah.
and my body wasn't feeling great. I hated my life at all. Like everything in it. And I was actually 29. But
Yeah.
when the whole thing happened, I turned 30. I was like, I'm done. Thank you.
Wow.
And then the accident happened and then the magic started to happen.
You know, it's interesting to look, and, you know, I love your question, you know, has it always been there? And also, how's the journey changed? Because it's, I was going to say something and then my brain just, my train left the station without me on it. That, that thing of getting to that place, and, you know, you can look at it all these years later for both of us and assume that we've always had access to, you know, or we've always, but it's not. We've been doing the work, you know. We've been putting in the time. We've been using the tools. We've been choosing and choosing and choosing. And there's also a sense where people would think that, oh, well, every choice you make must turn out like rainbows and unicorns. No.
Nah.
But we don't let it stop us. And it gets easier and easier and easier and easier to spot a choice that's going to be yuck, you know, and then to course correct before you choose it. Or if you do choose something and you're yuck and stuck, well, then it's easier to get out of it. You know, it's easier to move on with the direction you'd really like to go. But it's a matter of being willing to do the work, you know, but also allow miracles along the way. It's like, what I've noticed is the people that are willing to do the work have a lot of miracles show up. So it's not just linear hard work. And what do you mean do the work? Well, just ask some questions. Like, don't come to conclusion that this is the only choice. See what else is possible. Ask what else is possible, you know? Um, and that, the people that do that have a lot of miracles show up along the way. And I would say the journey has gotten dynamically even more fun, and also more miracles, and also easier to change things. It's like just keeps getting better.
You know what you taught me? something happened. Oh yeah, when these Hungarian videos came out of
Oh,
my
yeah.
work,
Yeah.
and I remember I was paralyzed. I couldn't move for 3 hours. I was just laying in my bed. I was in Mexico City. I thought I can't do anything. I'm not in Budapest, and now this all happening, and my career is over, and what I'm gonna do. And I put so much work on it. People can see my wire. So I tried to send you a message. It took me hours to write down every details, but then they said that and this and this, and I sent you the message, and you in 30 seconds you wrote me another message saying, "Congratulations, you have arrived." I'm like, thank you, but
Like, thank you, asshole. Why are you not aligning with my drama? Don't you know how terrible this is? I'm like, oh, yes, I do. I've experienced so much of it. So many
Right.
haters in the world that want
Yeah.
to stop people from knowing miracles exist.
Yeah.
And yeah, oh,
A-
well.
And I remember I'm like, I kept talking to him, like, okay, but please help because I understand what you said, but still I have this drama. I have to go through this. And I asked you one day some questions about this, and you were like, okay, then what did you do when this happened to you? And you said it could stop me, but it didn't let stop me. And
Yeah.
that became my basically my favorite sentence. Is like, oh, this person hates me, this person wants to leave my company, this person makes me wrong. And I'm like, yeah, it could stop me, but I'm not letting it stopping me.
That.
And it helped me so much. I went through shit in the past couple of years that I would not imagine being able to handle so easily, especially 2024.
What a year.
Yeah, yeah. And it helped me so much. And thank you for that. Because, your experience, like, I am inspired by it a lot because you said one time at the class that consciousness started, you guys went through the
Oh,
rainforest
yeah.
with clippers.
Yeah. We were cutting a path with nail clippers, and you guys have a super highway,
Yeah. I feel like it because if you wouldn't have the experience, you wouldn't have the awareness, and you couldn't give me the awareness or
Yeah.
just, and it helped me so much. And I would stop me a lot, but I'm not going to. A little bit sometimes because
Yeah,
I'm a
don't
little
we
pathetic.
all?
Yeah.
We have to slow ourselves down,
Little
otherwise,
victim sometimes, but
But that, and thank you for that and for receiving it, because, and your willingness to not be stopped. It's like, it's amazing because also people need to know that because everybody has things and people that want to stop them in their lives. People want to make them wrong. People want to gaslight them, all these sorts of things. And it doesn't mean you're wrong and it doesn't mean you should stop. And yes, it could stop you, but are you going to let it?
the other thing you always told me, it's not personal. I
Yeah.
remember you kept telling me, I'm like, this is so annoying. Can you tell me something else, please? Thank you. And then you kept saying, it's not personal. It's not about you. It's not personal. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I got it, I'm like, oh my God, none of it is
Yeah.
personal. It changed my entire life, basically,
That is so
for the
cool.
better.
Because if you look at it, it's about the person who has to say mean, hurtful lies. Wow. It has nothing to do with me. Like, take whatever I do or leave it. I don't care. But, it's people show how much weird shit they have going on in their heads when they do things like that. It's like, okay, well, I wouldn't wish that for you, but you must work for you. Okay, cool.
Mm. This is how you make your life easier for yourself. And when you have more space, then more miracle can show up, basically.
Exactly that.
I love this conversation. I want more miracles. I realize with my life that when I don't have miracles showing up, they didn't go anywhere.
That.
They're always around me. It's just me
Yeah.
being in some space or a mood or whatever, but I'm just not receiving it.
Yeah. And that's actually the case for all of us.
Hmm.
Once again, I know that can seem hard to hear sometimes, you
Is
know.
it? Do you think it's a hard work for us to actually not have miracles?
I think it takes a lot of effort on our
Effort.
part,
Mm.
but we've learned to put in that effort since we were tiny because we grew up around people who didn't believe in miracles. We grew up
Mm.
around people who, when we would talk to them about miraculous things or hopes and dreams that we had that we knew should exist, if you're below a certain age, it's okay to talk that because, oh, that's just nonsense. But as you get older, if you still have those hopes and dreams, those awarenesses, then you're told you're delusional. Whether they say it to you or not, or whether they just go, oh, weirdo again.
Mm.
You know, so we're conditioned to believe that it doesn't exist by the very world we live in.
After my accident, I started to change quickly, and my parents thought I was doing something really weird,
Right.
and I'm crazy, and I need something to do with myself because this is not okay. And then at some point, I realized, yeah, they have to judge me because they're not able to like stop me or manipulate me or control me. And when I realized that their problem is not actually not that I'm getting happier or different than I used to be. The issue is for them is more like, oh, we cannot control her anymore. We cannot manipulate her
Right.
with the judgments and stuff.
Our
And
judgments no longer work
no,
on her.
no. And
That's a space of freedom, by the way.
yeah. And I heard one time Shannon O'Hara talking about when people's judgment does create something in your world, they are controlling you.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, if I let people judge me and I let the judgment has an effect on me, I'm never going to be free. I'm never
Yep.
going to be free. And when I got that, I'm like, oh my gosh. It was really interesting because I changed a lot and people like they said that I'm hulu hulu. I'm doing like this hulu hulu thing. And even my family started to change around me. And my sister would call me and she said, what did you do to mom? You did this hulu hulu thing on her? I'm like, why? She's so weird. She was so kind to me. I'm like,
Ah,
well, I didn't really do anything. I think I'm being something. You're welcome. And they still thought I was crazy. And one day I bought a really beautiful car, a different one. And I went home and they were like, whose car is this? I'm like, whose car is this? This is my car. And my mom was like, is it brand new? I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't buy a used car. I just decided I'm not gonna buy a used car anymore. She's like, yeah, but didn't you know when you buy a new car, you come out of the dealer and it's worth like I don't know how many $1,000 less. And I'm like, I don't care honestly. And it was so funny. They were judging me for everything, but because I had a nice car, my mom's husband asked me, he's like, hey, what are you doing exactly? Like, what is this that you're doing?
mm-hmm.
And my mom was in the room when he asked the question. We started to talk. I was trying to be aware of what he can receive.
Yeah.
And I realized when my mom wasn't in the room anymore. And I'm like, what is mom? And she's like, oh, I'm out here. The fridge had ice. I had to defreeze or whatever.
I had to avoid the conversation
Yeah,
about this
basically.
weird shit you're doing. Totally.
And she left the room and I'm like, whoa, that's interesting. And I realized I don't have to, it's for me. I will keep going, keep changing. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I just know that finally my life is amazing. I don't hate myself. I don't wake up on every morning thinking, oh, should I do drugs or something else to maybe survive the day? And I was like, it's okay. And I remember that moment when something dissolved from my world when I realized I don't have to prove anything anymore. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for them choosing what they choose, but it's okay for me too to choose what I choose. And I don't know, 2 years later, I am at my biggest bars class, and my mom in first row, and my sister, and her husband, and my mom
Wow.
crying because I didn't know, but some of my clients they organized. So one person would stand up and they had a mic and they would express their gratitude to me,
Uh-huh.
and then someone said something, and then she said thank you, and then there was another person, and there was another person, and there was another person, and I was like, what's going on in here? Is it like a candy cam or something? And they're like, not stupid. This is what it is. I was like, oh my God, thank you. And my mom was there. She couldn't believe it. And she came to me. She's like, people love you like this? I didn't know. Like, well, see, I don't know.
Right.
It's just what it is. And my family does bars. So my sister does bars where she lives.
Wow.
And my nieces, when I come, they're like, can you touch my head for a little bit because can you do that a little bit because I da da da. And I didn't try to force them to do because they have to or their life would change. I just was like, I just keep going and we'll
Well, I think
see.
that's the thing is the recognition that willingness to let them choose what they need to, but also the willingness to choose what you need to. And it's okay. It's the way it should be. You know? It's like, there's so many things that we can have so much easier if we stop making it relevant or believe that it's our job to control other people. Let's live life, be happy, and do our best to contribute to those that are willing to receive it and not worry about whether somebody's willing to receive it or have it or not, because that's not up to us. It's up to them. Let them choose, even if it's not what we think they should choose. Because Lordy knows we've chosen a lot of things that we needed to go through to get to, a lot of things that um, we, if we knew better, we wouldn't have chosen, but we had to choose it to know better. And everybody's that way. So there you go.
Here you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this amazing conversation.
It has been a great conversation. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wow. So you guys, if you didn't believe until today in miracles, they might show up in
Hope
the
it's
next few
starting.
days.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Dain. I'm so grateful. And if people would like to engage with you, where they can find you.
On all the social channels. And you can also go to my website, drdainheer.com.
Yeah. And stay tuned because you're coming back to Europe.
Yes.
We'll have an ESB class.
Yes.
And as I know, you are coming back to Budapest.
True story.
Well, I think when this episode goes out, everything will be posted already. But you guys, if you're interested, you can come and you can check on Dane's website.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.